The government interest expense continues to rise. Why is this important to you though? The annual net interest cost for the United States government has recently risen to $882 billion. That occurred in the fiscal year 2024 for the government, which means it did top national defense spending and accounted for over 13% of the $6.75 trillion that was spent by the government in fiscal year 2024. This increase in interest expense was nearly a 300% climb since 2014. People and investors are so focused on what the Fed does with short-term interest rates, but they are forgetting that long-term rates, like the 10-year Treasury, dictates what long-term borrowing costs will be, like on your mortgage, let's say. You may be thinking that the government has a lot of leeway to cut expenses, but with a budget deficit of nearly $1.9 trillion, it may be difficult to find large expense cuts. Why do I say that, you may ask? It's because social benefits and defense spending are very large components of the budget, and they would be very difficult and very painful to cut as well. Also unpopular from a politician standpoint. Of the $6.75 trillion that was spent last year, Social Security accounted for $1.46 trillion, and Medicare accounted for $874 billion. Together, those two items alone accounted for nearly 35% of the spending. National defense totaled $874 billion and accounted for about 13% of total spending. Other large components included health at $912 billion, income security at $671 billion, veterans benefits at $325 billion, education at $305 billion, and then transportation at $137 billion. If you do believe that increasing corporate taxes is a great idea to reduce the deficit, looking at the numbers, it accounts for a small amount of the total tax revenue that is generated. For fiscal year 2024, corporate income taxes came in at $530 billion. This compares to individual income taxes at $2.43 trillion and total receipts or total revenue for the government of $4.92 trillion. So a little bit over 10% is essentially what the corporate taxes make up. This means even if we doubled the corporate tax rate, it would only lead to an increase of $530 billion with all else being equal. My big concern though is that this would be devastating for growth, which would then likely lead to a decrease in Social Security or payroll taxes, and then individual income taxes as well. I've said many times before that the best way out of this debt situation is to produce and increase our GDP at a rate far faster than the growing debt. As the GDP becomes larger, the debt as a percent becomes smaller. I'm Chase Wilsey with Wilsey Asset Management. If you like these videos, be sure to give it a like or comment, and feel free to check out our other YouTube videos and weekly newsletter for the latest economic news, expert analysis, and market insights.